Medieval Christians believed Judas was the ultimate traitor, until a secret gospel turned that idea upside down. According to the Gospel of Judas, he didn't betray Jesus. He obeyed him. Yes, the guy we've all been taught to hate might have been the only one who actually understood the plan. In this lost gospel, Jesus laughs at the other disciples for getting everything wrong and tells Judas alone, "You will exceed all of them." So why was this banned? Why did the church spend centuries burying it? Because if Judas was a hero, then Christianity as we know it was built on a lie. Get ready for secret tombs, vanished manuscripts, and a heretical twist so explosive, the Vatican still won't touch it. And it all starts with a single line that flips the crucifixion story on its head. Judas didn't betray Jesus. He did exactly what Jesus asked him to do. So why did the early church work so hard to make sure you never heard that version? Judas Iscariot is called the betrayer in every church, every gospel, every Easter sermon. But the Gospel of Judas says Jesus chose him for that role. This ancient text was found in the Egyptian desert in the 1970s, written in Coptic, hidden in a tomb. It spent years in a safety deposit box, decaying in humid darkness while art dealers tried to sell it on the black market. By the time scholars got their hands on it, parts were missing, but the message was clear and completely heretical. Jesus pulls Judas aside and tells him, "You will sacrifice the man that clothes me." Translation: Judas wasn't betraying Jesus. He was helping liberate the divine spirit from the prison of flesh. He wasn't a villain, he was the only one who understood the mission. Of course, the Gospel of Judas didn't make the official cut. The early Christian leaders, guys like Irenaeus, called it blasphemy, heresy, dangerous nonsense. Because if Judas was obeying Jesus, then the crucifixion wasn't a betrayal, it was a plan. And the whole narrative of sin, guilt, and salvation suddenly doesn't work the same way. This wasn't just a different opinion, it was a theological grenade, and the church wasn't about to let it go off. In the Gospel of Judas, Jesus laughs at his disciples. A lot. Apparently, they were clueless. They kept worshiping the wrong God, one they thought was the Father, but who Jesus implies is a lesser, corrupt deity. The real God, according to this text, is beyond human understanding. Jesus says they're offering sacrifices to the wrong being. He mocks their prayers. It's not exactly Sunday school material. And here's the kicker. Only Judas gets it. He's the one Jesus reveals the cosmic truth to. This wasn't a cozy dinner betrayal. It was an inside job. And Jesus was the mastermind. Naturally, the Gospel of Judas was a problem. If the other disciples were bumbling fools, and Judas was the chosen one, then everything in the canonical Gospels gets flipped. It's not just a different story, it's a completely different religion. The Gospel of Judas wasn't alone, it was part of a wave of texts that didn't make the cut. In the first few centuries after Jesus, there were dozens of Gospels. Gospel of Mary, Gospel of Thomas, Gospel of Philip. The early Christian world was chaos, a theological free-for-all. Everyone had a version of the truth. The Gospel of Judas comes from a group called the Gnostics. They believed salvation came from secret knowledge, not faith or good deeds. In their view, the material world was a trap, created by an evil or ignorant God. So when Judas sacrifices Jesus, he's freeing his divine essence. Naturally, this clashed with the church's message. Gnostic texts made people question authority. They didn't need priests or bishops, they just needed the truth. That made them dangerous. And the Gospel of Judas was one of the most explosive. The early church didn't just ignore these texts, they buried them, literally. In 367 CE, Bishop Athanasius of Alexandria issued an Easter letter listing the only acceptable books. Everything else? Heresy. Burn it. But some people refused. Instead of destroying their sacred writings, they hid them, buried them in jars, tucked them in caves, wrapped them in linen and sealed them in tombs. That's how the Gospel of Judas survived. Barely. A single copy found in Egypt, nearly lost to humidity, mold, and neglect. Its survival is a fluke, a historical accident. And that accident revealed just how much early Christianity fought to control the narrative. The Gospel of Judas wasn't publicly revealed until 2006. Yes, that recently. For decades it sat in a safe. Then it passed through shady antiquities dealers, lost pages, and botched translations. National Geographic finally published it with a team of scholars. And what they found stunned everyone. This wasn't a smear job. It wasn't a parody. It was sincere, mystical, and reverent in its own way. It portrayed Judas not as a traitor, but as the one disciple Jesus trusted the most. Theologians freaked out. Some said it vindicated Gnosticism. Others called it dangerous revisionism. Most churches politely ignored it. But once it was out, they couldn't unpublish it. The heretic had spoken. Even Irenaeus, one of the church's earliest heresy hunters, mentioned the Gospel of Judas in the 2nd century. He didn't like it. He said it was a lie, written by a sect he called Cainites, people who venerated biblical villains. Cain, Esau, Korah, and yes, Judas. To him, this was perversion. To us, it looks like theology's dark mirror. The gospel flips the moral script. The hero is the villain is the hero, and truth is buried beneath centuries of propaganda. If Irenaeus was right, and this gospel really came from the Cainites, then it wasn't just alternate theology. It was theological rebellion. An early Christian punk movement, the Gospel of Judas has no resurrection. That's not a minor detail. That's the whole ball game. In this version, Jesus dies, and that's it. No Easter morning, no empty tomb. No walking through walls or ascending to heaven. Just the sacrifice and the release of spirit from body. To Orthodox Christianity, this was heresy on steroids. No resurrection meant no salvation, no defeat of death, no promise of eternal life. That's why they buried it. They weren't just suppressing an alternate gospel. They were preserving the very structure of belief, a structure that needed Judas to stay the villain. The Gospel of Judas doesn't just change theology, it changes blame. For centuries, people have used Judas as a scapegoat. He's been called greedy, weak, even possessed. But what if he was just obedient? What if he did the one thing none of the others could? And what if Christians built 2,000 years of doctrine on misunderstanding or willfully misrepresenting his role? It's not just uncomfortable, it's destabilizing. Because if Judas wasn't a traitor, then maybe betrayal is sometimes just faith in disguise. And that idea? Still too dangerous for most to touch. You'd think after 2,000 years, Christianity would have sorted out its origin story. But the Gospel of Judas proves that even the most central narratives were up for debate and suppression. It's not just about Judas, it's about how power rewrites history, how uncomfortable truths get buried, and how sometimes the villain was just the only one who read the fine print.